All right, let's talk about stuff. We're all surrounded by it, but some things are just more. They're not just objects. It's this weird little mystery in all of our lives, right? Well, today we're going to crack it wide open.
So yeah, here's the big question we're tackling. Why do we cling to certain physical things with so much emotion? I mean, it's obviously not about the money. There's got to be something way deeper going on.
You know what I'm talking about, right? That old, worn-out hoodie that just feels like a hug, or that cheap little souvenir that somehow holds the entire memory of an amazing trip. Or maybe it's just a simple photo, a keepsake from someone, and it connects you to a moment you never, ever want to forget. These things, they're like anchors to our inner worlds. But how do they actually do that?
To really get it, we've got to dig into how our minds are wired. And it turns out there are these two really powerful psychological clues that are going to help us solve this whole mystery.
So our first big clue has this kind of academic-sounding name, embodied cognition. But trust me, the idea is actually super cool and intuitive. It's basically saying that your mind isn't just locked up in your brain, floating in a jar. No, your whole body, what you touch, how you move, everything you physically experience is constantly shaping how you think and feel on an abstract level.
Here's a perfect example of what I mean. Our brains just love metaphors. It's how they make sense of things. So when you hold a warm cup of coffee, you might literally perceive a person you're talking to as being emotionally warmer. The physical feeling translates into an emotional judgment. And, this is the important part for us, the physical feeling of closeness can get interpreted by our brain as emotional connection.
Okay, clue number 2 comes from something called attachment theory. Now, this is a huge deal in psychology. It basically argues that from the second we're born, we have this powerful, built-in drive to be close to our parents or caregivers. That closeness makes us feel safe and secure, and guess what? That fundamental need for proximity, it doesn't just vanish when we become adults. So you can see how both these clues are pointing to the importance of distance. But we have to be really specific here. There's physical distance, right? The actual measurable space between you and a thing. But then there's psychological distance. And that's all about the feeling of connection to a memory or a person or even a part of yourself. One is measured in feet and inches, the other is measured in feelings.
Okay, so we've got our clues. Our brains turn physical sensations into emotional feelings. And we have this deep, deep need for closeness. So let's put it all together. It's time to reveal the solution to our mystery, a concept that researchers call the proximal self. This is it. This is the big idea, laid out right here. This model from the research paper is called the proximal self, and it shows the whole thing perfectly. Basically, it shows how being physically close to an object, that's the stuff on the left, builds a bridge that shrinks the psychological distance to all the good stuff, the comfort, the connection, the memories, that's everything on the right. It's a direct link from the outside world to your inside world.
So here's the theory in a nutshell. When we hold a meaningful object, when we just keep it near us, our brain uses that physical closeness as a kind of mental shortcut. It reduces the psychological distance to whatever that object stands for. The object becomes a real, tangible stand-in for a feeling that isn't.
And this general idea isn't brand new, but we're seeing it in a whole new light. The researcher Russell Belk said it way back in 1988, we are what we have. Our possessions literally become extensions of who we are, not just for showing off, but as real tools that we use to manage our emotional lives.
Now, a cool theory is one thing, but how do you know if it's actually true? Well, you've got to test it, and the researchers designed a really clever experiment to do just that.
So the setup was really simple and honestly kind of beautiful. First, they had everyone think of a personal object that they really cherished. Then they split them into two groups. Group A was told to imagine holding that object, having it right there with them. Group B, on the other hand, had to imagine that their object was lost, far away, totally gone. And then finally, they asked everybody to rate how close they felt to the meaning of that object.
And the results were, well, they were crystal clear. The people who just imagined holding their object close said they felt way closer psychologically to the memory or the person it represented. Just the idea of physical closeness directly translated into emotional closeness. The theory was a slam dunk.
But wait, there's one more really fascinating layer to this whole story. Because it turns out this effect isn't exactly the same for everybody. The researchers found this key emotional factor that can make the connection to our things even stronger. And here's the twist. The power of a physical object to bridge that psychological distance, it's strongest for people who have a high degree of what's called separation anxiety. And we're not just talking about being away from people, but the fear of losing connection to the very meaning that the object holds. To put it simply, when we're feeling insecure or stressed out, or we're worried that a precious memory is starting to fade, that's when we reach for our objects. They become like a security blanket for our minds. The more we're afraid of losing that connection, the more we cling to the physical thing that keeps it alive.
So, after all of this, what's the big takeaway? What does understanding the secret psychology of our possessions really mean for us today, right now?
I think the big point is this. We're living in this increasingly digital world, right? A world of clouds and streaming and files that don't really exist anywhere. So much of our lives is becoming weightless. But this research is a powerful reminder that we are still physical, embodied creatures. We have this ancient, fundamental need for real, tangible things to help us feel grounded and navigate our emotional worlds.
And that really leaves us with one final thought. In your own life, with all the digital noise, what's the one physical thing